Johnny came back from school one day, and the first thing that came to his mind was the fridge. He just ran down to the fridge, and he actually opened the fridge and saw this wonderful cake inside the fridge. And he ran back to his mom and told his mom, Mommy, please, can you just divide the cake in the fridge into four equal parts and give me just one part of the four equal parts of the cake? And because mom loves Johnny so much, mommy actually divided the cake into four equal parts. Mom divided the cake into four equal parts and gave Johnny just one part of the cake. She actually divided it to four equal parts. Like, this is one part, this is two parts, this is third part, this is second part, this is the third part, and this is the fourth part. She divided the cake into four equal parts and gave Johnny just one portion out of the four parts of the cake. She just gave Johnny one portion. So we can write this as Johnny had one portion out of the four parts of the cake, Or we can write, let's say for example Johnny asked for three parts of the cake, three parts. We can write Johnny asked for that's three portions out of the four parts of the cake. Johnny actually likes cake. So okay, now apart from this, let's say we have a rectangle like this. We have a rectangle like this. Let's say we have a rectangle like this, and we just decided to divide the rectangle into, this is actually a rectangle, decided to divide the rectangle into two equal parts. Let's shade one part of the rectangle with white, and let's shade the other part of the rectangle with the green color. Now we can say the white part of the rectangle, we can say this portion is one out. Now we have two portions, we have two parts of the rectangle. We have this part and this other part, and remember the rectangle is actually divided into two equal parts. So for the white part, this is one out of the two parts. For the green part, this is one out of the two parts. So we can just write this as one out of two. That's for the white part. And for the green part, you can write one out of two. But you see, we are so used to counting numbers or whole numbers. Anytime you see pencils, you say, oh, you say, oh, that's just one pencil. Anytime you see two pencils, you say, oh, that's two pencils. Or let's say we have some candies in the fridge, you say, oh, I have three pieces of candies in the fridge. You have three pieces of candies in the fridge. So we are so used to whole numbers. But let's say we need to describe parts of quantities, like this one portion out of the four equal parts of the cake, or this rectangle here, where we have to talk about one part out of the two parts of the cake, of the rectangle. Let's say we have to describe just part of a quantity. How do we go about it? Instead of writing this sentence like one out of four parts or three out of four parts, why don't we do this like this? Why don't we say one out of four parts could also be one out of four. This is simpler than writing one out of four parts like this. One out of four parts. Instead of writing three out of four parts, we can also write that as three out of four. Instead of writing one out of two there, we can just write this as one out of two. Now, anytime we represent numbers like this, we call this type of numbers fractions. So this is called a fraction. This is also called a fraction. This here is also called a fraction. So anytime we are describing parts of a whole, for example, this cake was actually one whole cake, but we divided the cake into four equal parts. So anytime we're talking about parts of a whole, it means we refer to a fraction of that whole object or quantity. For example, when we gave Johnny one part of this cake, we just gave him a fraction of the cake. We gave him a part of the cake. So this is 1 all over 4. You see this line here? This line is called the fraction bar. Let me write that out. Fraction the fraction bar. It's called the fraction bar. Now the number above the fraction bar, that's 1, is called, the number above the fraction bar is called the numerator. While the number just below the fraction bar is called the denominator. Let me write that out. The denominator. Now the numerator just shows the number of parts required from the total number of equal parts that we have. Now you know here we have 4 equal parts. Now the number required, the number Johnny took here was just 1 out of the 4 equal parts, and this one here is the numerator. The numerator is just the parts required from the number of equal parts, from the total number of equal parts we have. Why the denominator? The denominator is the number below the fraction bar. The denominator is just the number of equal parts the whole has been divided into. You notice this is the whole cake here. Now we divided the cake into 4 equal parts. So denominator is just the number of equal parts the whole cake has been divided into. Now the whole cake has been divided into 4 equal parts. So it means the denominator is 4. Denominator is 4. So these are fractions. What we'll do in the subsequent video is we'll talk about the different type of fractions that we have, and we'll go into more examples on fractions.